Have you ever had the experience where you went to bed feeling really sleepy, feeling right and ready for bed, but the moment your head hits the pillow, it's like a light switch went off on your brain, and all of a sudden your mind is just racing and racing, and all that sleepiness seems to have just gone right out the window? If so, this video is for you because I'm going to talk about why we experience this phenomenon, what it's called, and how we can use evidence-based strategies from behavioral sleep medicine to target it. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Dr. Parky. I'm a Stanford-trained behavioral sleep medicine specialist, and I've treated many patients with chronic insomnia using non-pharmacological, that is, no medication, treatments for chronic insomnia and sleep disturbances, with the frontline treatment being cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And I also happen to be the author of this book, The Insomnia Paradox. It's a self-help book for providing CBT and how you can use CBT strategies to treat your insomnia. So to understand this phenomenon of going to bed sleepy, but then finding yourself feeling wide awake, I want to tell you a story of Pavlov's dog, which you might be familiar with. So Pavlov's dog and this experiment was the idea of a scientist named Ivan Pavlov who was studying his dog's digestive habits, and he would often ring a little bell before he would give the dogs food, just as the kind of like a signal to say, hey, it's time for food. And one interesting phenomenon he observed was that at some point, even when there was no food around, the Ivan Pavlov would ring his little bell, and the dogs began to salivate anyway. And this interesting observation set the foundations of what we call today as classical conditioning. And what classical conditioning essentially is that the dogs had learned and made an association between the ringing of the bell with food, such that when it kind of heard the bell, the body would begin to react and start to salivate because it was getting ready and prepared for food. And humans are not so much more sophisticated in terms of these learning principles as compared to their canine counterparts in the context that we can also create the same association. So in the context of insomnia, let's say you're always in bed, worrying, awake, frustrated, tossing and turning. At some point, the bed in the bedroom is going to become associated with that same level of distress and alertness, just the same as the dog had associated. And this phenomenon is called conditioned arousal, where we have become conditioned to have sort of a higher level of hyperarousal in the context of the bed in the bedroom. So if you've ever had the experience of going to bed sleepy, but then feeling wide awake, you're probably experiencing conditioned arousal. So the goal then, based off this fundamental understanding of conditioned arousal, is that we need to break the association between bed and wake and restore the association between bed and sleep. And just by understanding this principle, as you're watching this video, you probably have a good sense of what are the behaviors that are going to be necessary to be able to break this association. And some of the things that you might think of would be, well, I want to make sure that the bed is just for sleep. I'm not going to be doing my homework in it or spending too much time awake and worrying in it. I'm only going to go to bed when I'm actually sleepy and therefore have a chance of falling asleep. And if sleep is not coming and the mind is just racing, I should probably either at least get out of bed and do something more enjoyable until the sleepiness returns. Or even if I am staying in bed, I should at least maybe sit up and, do something enjoyable so I'm not at least associating the bed and the bedroom with distress, which is like the furthest thing away from being able to sleep. And an important part of this process is to make sure that you're still waking up at the same time every single day. So if your wake time is usually 8 a.m., you're still waking up at 8 a.m. Even if you got out of bed in the middle of the night for like 3 hours, you still get up at the bed at the same time to really make sure that the next night, like 11 p.m. or whenever your bedtime is, that you are more than ready to make sure that you are setting yourself up for success when it comes to falling asleep. Because now you're going to have extra hunger for sleep because you didn't get a lot of sleep the last night, and you've done the great work to start reassociating your bed with sleep rather than with wake. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful to learn a little bit more about these kind of weird phenomenon, like why am I so sleepy, but the moment my head hits the pillow, like what the heck? So hopefully that was helpful to answer that question. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.